Hi, my name is Conor Hickey. I'm Lead Solution Architect here at Dealflo. One of the questions we're commonly asked is how Dealflo can be implemented across multiple geographies. And what we'll try and do today is delve into this particular use case in a little bit of detail. There are many ways that this can be solved, and we'll look at some of those examples or some that we've used in the marketplace today. If we take a business who's looking to deploy a solution across their business in different geographies, there's two different approaches that you could take. You could deploy a single workflow to all of those geographies and try and manipulate that workflow through content and branding so that that single workflow satisfies all of those geographies. Or alternatively, at the other end of the spectrum, you could deploy an individual workflow to each of those geographies. And both have pros and cons. Obviously, with a single workflow, there's less maintenance, but unfortunately, with a single workflow, a single change needs to be adopted across all of those geographies. So I think at Dealflo, what we've seen in the past, and certainly what we've implemented, is an individual workflow for each of the geographies in a company's domain. Now, each of those workflows you would hope are almost identical in structure, but the key differences are going to come in content, regulation, the documents being signed, the type of PYC and KYC being executed. So we have to consider all of those. But if I can explain how that's implemented through a single integration, I think that's probably of interest. So if we take the initiate transaction. Now we've described in previous videos of how the initiate transaction and that single integration can be used to launch different workflows, and we'll use that here in this context for the different geographies. So that's our initiate transaction. If you remember, a document is being passed to this initiate transaction call with metadata. If you recall, the channel and brand parameter has been passed, control which workflow is being launched, and the look and feel of that workflow. The eSign URL is returned by the initiate transaction. And redirecting to that eSign URL will launch a particular signing ceremony. So if we take the example where a motor finance solution being used in the UK, the document would be for a HP loan or a PCP loan. The metadata would indicate it's a workflow for the UK audience. The eSign URL is generated. That launches an eSign ceremony. We would, for a UK implementation, use knowledge-based authentication as the PYC feature, so the multiple choice questions and answers features. There would be particular regulatory screens shown during the eSign ceremony to sign your SECI, etc., and the contract would be displayed and signed. Obviously, the content is in English, and any localization we need to consider is specific to UK. Now, we could then consider that same company, that same client, wanting to deploy a solution in a European country. So we may want to use the same type of workflow. So we would have, and this is very much at a high level, some PYC before you're allowed to sign your document. So the metadata, the channel parameter, is controlling which of these workflows to display. And this workflow might use document verification combined with one-time passcode. So a passcode sent to a customer's mobile phone through SMS, required to enter it into the workflow to proceed. So you can see the metadata, the channel, will determine which of these workflows to display to the customer based on geography. Obviously, if you have different workflows, it's easier to manage different content because there's different language to display, and also different workflow, you can apply different localization to that particular workflow. If a geography has an individual regulation you need to apply, you can apply it to that workflow without affecting the UK workflow. So the recommendation is, whilst you're building an overhead with maintenance and having multiple workflows, these workflows are easy to configure and they're quick to configure and they're easy to maintain, quick to have changes. So Dealflo would recommend having multiple workflows per country. We mentioned branding as well, so branding can be used to brand each of the domains differently if there was different branding specification for each of the countries. So that is an explanation of how Dealflo can be implemented across multiple geographies. As I said, there's multiple ways of solving this, and that very much depends upon the client and the client use case, but obviously all those options are there for us to solve. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you very much for watching.